Let's stop lying to ourselves, not politely, not gently, not with a sigh and a shrug. Let's stop lying. These people are not fleeing war zones. They are not escaping collapsed states. They are not washing up from active battlefields. They are coming from France. They are coming from Spain. 2 NATO countries, 2 EU members, 2 nations officially designated as safe. This is not asylum. This is forum shopping. And the longer we pretend otherwise, the more ridiculous we look. The refugee lie that everyone is afraid to name. The asylum system was created for one very specific reason: to protect people who cannot find safety anywhere else, not people who walk through 6 safe countries, declined protection in every one of them, and then decided Britain looked like a better deal. That's not desperation. That's choice, and choice disqualifies the moral claim. If France is safe enough to live in, work in, apply for asylum in, raise children in, and remain indefinitely, then crossing the Channel is not survival, it's preference, and preference is not a human right. But they're still desperate is not an argument. Every time this topic comes up, someone rushes in with the same line, but they're still desperate. So what? Desperation does not override law. It does not nullify borders. It does not entitle you to choose the most generous welfare system on the continent. Millions of people on Earth are desperate. That does not mean Britain becomes an open access destination for anyone who wants better housing, better benefits, or better odds. If that were the rule, borders would be meaningless, and pretending otherwise is childish. France is not a war zone. Let's get specific, because vagueness is how this scam survives. France has a functioning asylum system, legal protections, housing pathways, employment access, social services. Spain has the same. These are not transit hellscapes. They are not collapsing states. They are not unsafe. The idea that someone must cross one of the most dangerous shipping lanes on Earth to be safe is absurd on its face. They were already safe. They just didn't want to stay. The Channel crossings are not accidents. These crossings are not random. They are not spontaneous. They are not chaotic acts of last resort. They are organized, coordinated, paid for operations. Smugglers don't operate charity services. They operate businesses. And every successful crossing reinforces the business model. Every rescue is marketed. Every arrival is proof of concept. The message spreads quickly. It works. And Britain keeps proving it true. The incentive structure is the problem. This is where honesty becomes unavoidable. People are not crossing because Britain is uniquely compassionate. They are crossing because Britain is uniquely inconsistent. Slow processing, low removal rates, years in limbo with accommodation and support. From the perspective of someone already in a safe country, Britain represents a gamble worth taking, not because it's moral, because it's profitable. Calling this asylum is an insult to actual refugees. Real refugees exist, people fleeing, active war, ethnic cleansing, state collapse, persecution with no safe alternative. They are not hanging around Calais deciding which welfare system suits them best. Lumping economic migrants and system abusers into the same moral category as genuine refugees is dishonest and corrosive. It destroys public trust. It cheapens real asylum claims. And it guarantees backlash. Borders exist for a reason. Borders are not a suggestion, they are not vibes, they are not optional, they are the basic mechanism by which a society decides who enters, on what terms, and under what obligations. Once you abandon that, you don't get compassion, you get disorder, and disorder always punishes the poorest citizens first. The working class pays the price. This is another truth everyone tiptoes around. The political class does not live next to asylum hotels. They do not compete for low-wage work. They do not absorb pressure on local services. The cost is borne by working-class communities, overstretched councils, low-income renters, NHS services already at breaking point. Telling people to be compassionate while dumping the consequences on them is not morality, it's cowardice. Stopping the boats is the wrong framing. Here's the part politicians still refuse to understand. You don't stop boats by talking about boats. You stop them by removing the incentive. If arriving illegally results in immediate detention, swift processing, guaranteed removal to the last safe country, the crossings collapse overnight, not gradually, not emotionally, immediately, because smugglers can't sell failure. This is not cruel, it is normal. Every serious country enforces borders. Australia does, Japan does, Canada does, the EU does, selectively and ruthlessly. Britain pretending it is uniquely bound by sentiment is a self-inflicted delusion. Enforcing the rules you already have is not cruelty, it's governance. The media's role in the charade. Let's talk about the press for a moment. Notice the language. Migrants instead of illegal entrants. Journey instead of crime. Crossings instead of breaches. Language launders reality. And the public isn't stupid enough to miss it. Every euphemism widens the trust gap. What actually needs to happen? Here's the boring, effective solution no one wants to say plainly: automatic inadmissibility for anyone arriving from a safe country, immediate return agreements enforced, not negotiated endlessly, offshore processing or detention until removal, no settlement, no work rights, no long-term accommodation, genuine asylum reserved strictly for those with no safe alternative, not someday, not after a review, now. This ends when Britain decides to end it. Let's be brutally clear about something the political class refuses to say out loud. This situation continues because Britain allows it to continue, not because it's complicated, not because it's unprecedented, not because it's unsolvable, because we have chosen paralysis over enforcement. Every other explanation is noise. This is not a capacity issue. You will hear endlessly that Britain is overwhelmed. That's nonsense. Britain runs nuclear submarines, global financial systems, intelligence operations across continents, one of the most complex tax systems on earth. And yet we're supposed to believe we cannot process, detain, and remove people arriving illegally from safe countries. No, this is not incapacity, it is lack of will. The system is broken by design. The current setup rewards one thing above all else: time. If you can stay long enough, if you can clog the system long enough, if you can generate enough legal fog, you win. Not because your claim is valid, but because the state is slow, cautious, and terrified of looking harsh. This is not compassion, it is bureaucratic cowardice dressed up as morality. The longer you stay, the harder you are to remove. Children born, roots established, community pressure, media outrage. The clock becomes the weapon, and everyone involved knows it, which is why the crossings continue even when they're risky, because the reward is residency by exhaustion. Let's kill the most common lie. You'll hear this line constantly: we can't just send them back. Yes, we can. International law does not require Britain to accept asylum claims from people arriving via safe countries. It never has. That is a political choice, not a legal obligation. France is responsible, Spain is responsible. The first safe country is responsible. Britain choosing to absorb the burden is not virtue, it's masochism. This is why public trust is gone. People aren't angry because they're cruel, they're angry because they're being gaslit. They're told, this is unavoidable, this is humane, this is the only option. While watching the same cycle repeat year after year, trust collapses when people realize no one is being honest. And when trust collapses, extremism fills the gap. That is how you poison a democracy. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If Britain enforced removal swiftly and consistently, the Channel crossings would collapse in weeks, not months, not years, weeks. Because the journey only exists if arrival leads to something. Take that away and the business model dies. No smugglers, no boats, no spectacle, just quiet, boring enforcement. Why politicians won't do it? So why won't they? Because enforcement is ugly, because removals look bad on camera, because someone will cry on television, and because modern politics is allergic to short-term outrage even when it prevents long-term collapse. So instead they choose drift, and drift is lethal. Compassion without limits is not compassion. A society that refuses to say no eventually loses the ability to say yes meaningfully. Resources are finite, housing is finite, public patience is finite. Pretending otherwise is not kindness, it is sabotage. This is the line in the sand. So let's end with reality, not slogans. People arriving illegally from France and Spain are not refugees. They are not entitled to choose Britain. They are not victims of our borders. They are exploiting a system that has lost its spine. And until Britain regrows one, nothing changes. Not the numbers, not the boats, not the anger. This ends the moment Britain decides enforcement matters more than appearances. Until then, don't pretend to be shocked. The sea didn't fail, the law didn't fail. Leadership did. Not right, not left, just real.